everybody. Gary-Dobbs here. Welcome to the Trep Show. Glad to have you with us. I'm sure you probably noticed that we've got a new day and time here. We've been rolling out on Thursday. Today's October 12th. And we'll bring it to you Trep Show number 39. We've wanted to try out, we've been trying out different days, different times of the week because we want to reach more of the audience. We found that Fridays, probably not a lot of people are too interested in growing their business or having this kind of discussion. Maybe you got to spend time with family or just get out and let some steam off, right? Right, Thaddeus?
Yeah.
So we really want to have in, like, live listeners listening to the show. But since, I run my own business, Dale, you run your own business outside of this, trying to find that sweet spot, that right day and time that we can do, but doesn't interrupt each of our main companies and what we do outside of the Trep Show has been tricky.
We're trying to meet everybody where we can. I'm saying
What'd you say?
I said we're trying to meet everybody where we can,
Yeah. Oh, and just keep this in mind, that Dale, I think there's a bit of a delay here, so when I'm talking to you and we say something, there might be a short delay in between responses.
Oh, you think so?
I think there was, yeah. Just based on me talking and waiting for your response, I think there's like a 2 or 3 second delay.
Well, actually, I was just setting up some things, and that's the reason why I wasn't responding right away.
Oh, okay. All right, cool. Well, yeah, because what we were talking about earlier, because, we've been changing the format of the show, right? We're trying to bring a better experience. Because for me, I found there's quite a few entrepreneurs out there now putting shows out, and there's different shows that I've seen, maybe one just specifically on marketing. I know another guy that he's an advisor to executives and companies, so he's started his own show podcast maybe less than 2 months ago. He's probably been running it for anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks, I think. But the interesting thing to me, though, is just finding out, who actually listens to podcasts, and then are they listening to them live, are they just playing the recorded ones whenever they got some downtime? I don't know. What do you think? Have you seen any growth in, people in podcasts getting more popular? Or is it just the podcasters that is getting more popular?
The podcasters. The ones who figured out how to, just like the Joe Rogan. I mean, that's the only real podcaster I know that's really successful.
Uh-huh.
Those kind of people are just getting even more on fire and more millions of people listen to that guy.
Yeah.
Lots of people watch. There's
comedian?
other ones like the Breakfast Club and all the other. They got radio shows, but not too many people who really
He's also a stand-up comedian, right?
Yeah.
Does he actually go out and tour and do stand-up, or does he only do the show now? Joe Rogan, does he also do comedy tours?
I think he still does his comedy. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's always amazing to me when I look at guys. Remember Steve Harvey when he used to be on a radio station. Even before that, he was doing a comedy tour. I think it was Kings of Comedy or something. He was involved with that project.
Who?
Steve Harvey.
Oh,
and then and he grew a pretty popular show, and then he got into, now look, he's doing TV. He's written books. He's been involved even with movies. So he's taken his career he's been able to tap into a lot of other markets in media.
Yeah.
He's been going places, I feel like it's being adaptable like that is a pretty good value to have, especially for entrepreneurs, because, we are subject to the markets that we're serving. So depending on what type of business you have and what you're selling, you really got to pay attention to the market, and what people are buying, what people want, because not everybody can be like a Steve Jobs, where you're just in the right time at the right place, and you say, I'm gonna create the best computer ever known in the world. And that guy was just fanatic about creating a better user experience for people with computers, right? So he never steered into anything else. Well, actually, he kind of did, right? When he got into iPod and got into CD players, because there were CD players before that. So he was able to take one little thing and make it a lot better. Pretty good skill. But what do you think? What do you think entrepreneurs should be doing? I mean, there's so much competition out there to make your business unique, to make your business stand out from the competition, to be able to capture enough market share to be able to sustain it and grow it, right?
Mm-hmm. Hey. Yeah, I'm down with it. I feel like there's a lot going on right now. And going off the, the title, what you're saying, because basically the reason why I had that little pause was I was trying to share this onto the Facebook group.
Okay. Well, okay. Well, you do that for a second. Let me go ahead and give the title. I didn't give the title of our show, what we're talking about today. Yeah. So we posed the question, does your company represent your country's values? Right? So we all know what's going on in the media right now. We've been paying attention. But if you're even somebody like me that just works in the business all the time and I pay attention to nothing else, I've still heard about what's going on between our country's values and divisiveness and stuff like that. So to me, it's just gotten like a messy topic. I feel like it's just probably steered away from what the original intent was. But for me, it's definitely, I don't know if it's an issue or not. It's not something that I experience on a day-to-day. So if I'm not out there experiencing it day in, day out, like with where I live and what I do and when I go out and meet people, to me, it's just a false issue, It's one little event, something that happens someplace, and then they just keep blowing it up in the media and repeating it over and over again. So I thought, remember what we were talking about before the show, and I think we were exploring, remember, critical issues with your company, that when there are legislations that impose challenges for your company, whether it's hitting the bottom line or impacting the livelihood of your employees. And there was a lot of things that we were covering, right? We were talking about, and it got us to thinking about kind of like what's going on in business out there, but what's going on with other businesses, even a business like sports, right? Where it's a very unique, a different type of business. It's not something that most people are involved with. But I thought, it's like when I put the entrepreneur out there and I'm thinking of the people, they're trying to do something they're passionate about. They're interested on not just living and dying and breathing in between, but they actually want to make a contribution to the world, right? And so they work day in and day out on figuring out what's that one thing that you're going to deliver. And if you're lucky and you're successful, you might have a lot more than one thing, but you have to start somewhere. And I've known even some entrepreneurs out there that have had good success, and they were pretty successful. Something happened, and the business got wiped out, and they haven't been able to recover from it. So I feel like there's some foundation, there's some key areas that entrepreneurs need to understand and know to be able to sustain their business no matter what hits them, right? Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like if there was a storm that came to your business, that you would be able to survive it because you had your infrastructure in place. You knew what you would do if something happened. Like you had gone through a lot of this stuff. So almost like you're trying to reduce the element of surprise on your business.
Yeah.
Now, when I look at it and I think about, because to me, business is much more important when I think about, okay, well, what are we just trying to deliver and bring to the market, right? And it's like, I was thinking of it as like, you just build a business that attracts the best talent, right? So myself, like I'm a solo entrepreneur. I would sometimes outsource work that I want to be doing, and I have partnerships. But eventually I want to grow my business to where I can start hiring people, have people work at my company so that We can have a lot more creative control over the products that we deliver. So one of the problems that I'd run into when I want to deliver solutions is having a reliable partnership, so that if I'm going to employ another company to work with me, that it's reliable. Like, we can have a good relationship. I can keep sending them business to do certain parts of the job for me, and it can be consistent. I can rely on them to actually also to, follow up with the timeline, be able to deliver on schedule, just have a really good working relationship. I found it's really hard for companies to be able to do that. That's why most companies that want to have that are going to just go and hire employees, because now you have a lot more direct control over the projects and the processes. And if you're manufacturing something, you just have a lot more say when you bring all those things in-house. When it's not in-house, I mean, sometimes you're just giving away secrets too to your business, right?
Yeah. And
so it's just trying to find that right recipe. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, the recipe. You kind of use a word I was gonna say next. It's like you're trying to find that right mix to get things to work in that way that it's gonna be more beneficial for the cause that you're trying to do. And I think that's really interesting, because we're in this era right now where it seems like people are, the media and things like that are just highlighting the differences people may have, and the reason why they want to stand for something or stand against something. And it's interesting to me that where people go to say, well, this is how we're going to be unified. I think if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you're going to understand the landscape of opportunities. And sometimes that landscape doesn't look like a traditional landscape. It doesn't look like the same way. It doesn't look like people, the whole thing about opportunity and, the history of America and the history of just human beings in general. And I feel like a lot of times we get caught up in the history of what happened, but we don't get caught up in the fact that people, no matter where you're from, no matter how you are, there's just factors that you have to include of human nature. And if you are an entrepreneur and you're trying to create a business and you're trying to create a success, one must really understand human nature. And I feel like some of the best entrepreneurs are the ones that really grasp onto that. Steve Jobs is a perfect example. Bill Gates is a perfect example. These kinds of guys understood that the human nature is going to, from how do we turn something complex into something simple? The computer processing. How do we turn that into something important? And I was watching this podcast, the Joe Rogan podcast, and this guy, I don't know if it's Brett Weinstein or Eric Weinstein, but the guy that was in an evergreen controversy, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But he made a very interesting point about say for instance, you're a business person. He was just talking about women and men in the workplace, and they were talking about the dynamics of interest and temperament, and why certain people do certain things and all this other kind of stuff. But he made a really interesting thing that he said that men do in general. And Joe Rogan, even though I watch his podcast, I do have some kind of disagreement on a lot of his ideas, but I do enjoy the fact that he does bring in different ideas, and he doesn't act like some superior, smug, whatever kind of person. So I give him credit for that right there. But anyways, the guy was saying that he was just trying to shoot holes inside of it, but he was not really understanding the point that he was trying to make when he was talking about, a lot of time men, they oversell but underproduce. And women are more stable, so they don't really do that. Child rearing, childbirth, you can't really just oversell yourself or oversay you can do something, because you can't make those kind of mistakes. You can't afford to make those mistakes. So they don't really do that. And so it kind of hurts them in certain areas because men are willing to say, well, a guy comes up to you and say, hey man, can you fix my alternator? Now the person has an idea, but he doesn't really know how to do it. So he's going to take that window and really learn how to do it so he can do that, so he can get whatever, so he can make that money. And a lot of times, some people don't do that. Some people do not overreach and underproduce. And sometimes, because what happens is you got to overreach and you got to overproduce. That is the actual mix.
Overreach and overproduce, right?
Yeah, that's what you want to do. But
so are you kind of relating that to a lot of these internet marketers that we see online, and especially in social media?
I mean,
because that's what you made me think of.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where, like, you get in that situation, and you gotta think about what is the narrative in the country, and how can you bring people together? Because I feel like right now, you said it. Me personally, like, I don't really try to too much pay attention. Like, honestly, man, I hate to say this publicly, but I didn't even know about the Las Vegas shooting. That's how far away from the news I was. I had no idea something like that happened. And then somebody in person told me, you didn't hear about that? I was like, no, man. Like, I feel like I don't really
I get that all the time. People are like, dude, are you with us, man? What's going on with you, man? What, you didn't know about this?
It's like, I have a real life, and I feel like, I mean, to go back to the point you made, not to try to say anything bad, but you did make a really interesting point a long time ago when I was talking about, a lot of people who are great, they lose their parents at like 10 or something like that. And it's one of those things where you're like, only in real life, the way life works, it doesn't care. And like, hey, that's what you were given. That's those are the facts that came across to your life, and you have to deal. And I just feel like, I mean, I'm just dealing with my life, I'm dealing with my losses. And does this make me seem like I'm some kind of person that doesn't care about the people around me? No. I understand that I can only do so much. And I feel like what happens is a lot of people have this idea, and we're talking about entrepreneurs, and we're talking about starting a business, and we're talking about creating. Well, the thing about it is there's so many people out there that forget that you can only do so much. So they say all these nice things, and they reach out and they want that pat on the back to say, well, isn't it such a good thing that you care enough to make a post on Facebook about how sad you feel for these people? Isn't it such a good thing that you feel so good because you agree what people are doing in the media with certain American whatever? You know what I'm saying? Aren't you such a good person because you do that? And then
I know,
somebody
it's
like me,
like they have to state that for you to claim to be a real person.
Yeah. And somebody like me, I'm out here doing my work, trying to figure out how to do my research, because research and development is what true entrepreneurs understand. If you're not a good entrepreneur, you don't understand research and development, and you're probably going to fail. So I'm doing that so I can make the circle that I'm building and I'm putting into to get stronger and more firm. So of course I'm not going to be paying attention to what happens over there. And just because I'm not paying attention over there doesn't mean I don't care. It just shows that, hey, people have a life and bad things happen. But it's so funny. Like, to me, it's interesting. Like, people make a big deal about that, but then they don't make a big deal about, the human trafficking industry. Like, you don't hear about that every single day. That's $1 billion industry. But, you're such a bad person because you didn't know. I was like, really? Like, they truly try to lecture me about that. And I thought that was funny, that this person is living paycheck to paycheck. And they're talking about, look how, and then complaining about their financials and their finances, and then telling me I'm such a bad person. I was like, wow, you're interesting. You have a very interesting take, and that's the one thing that I guess what's happening now, and this is what I really like about the topic that you have, for the title is, does your company incorporate your country's value. And I think
Uh-huh.
a lot of times values now are being cherry picked to fit a certain narrative, and it doesn't always work. There's instances where it doesn't always work, just like how we were talking before, and you were saying about this guy, and like we were looking at the big picture from two different angles, two different points of it. You were talking about how it was a great thing this guy figured out how to pull money from his other business to help with the issue that arise because government legislation put a conflict between the employee and the employer. And and I was looking at it from the point of like, well, at the end of the day, if you're an entrepreneur and you created a business, so you worked really hard to get to a certain point. Like you put all that effort into it.
Mm-hmm.
How is it fair for you not to look out for your business? How is it unfair? How can somebody look at that and say, "Oh, it's messed up that you're looking out for your business and not your employees"?
Yeah.
Well, if you didn't look out for your business, would there be employees? So, I mean, that was the kind of difference that we had in that opinion. But I think we were thinking in the same way. I think once I looked from your lens, I was seeing it from your point of view. And then once you looked from my lens, you were like, okay, I see where you're going. But it's just one of those things where human nature doesn't always get taken into consideration when we're talking about entrepreneurship and country and what you believe in and what you stand for. I believe if you live in a certain country, the culture of your entrepreneur endeavor should reflect that. Now, if you're trying to, like you said earlier, you're talking about, well, what if I'm trying to create a new culture? What if I'm trying to create something new and I'm trying to build something and break down a glass wall or something, break down a wall that prevents such and such, then how do you do that and still respect the values? Somebody's going to get stepped on. How do you do that? How do you handle that?
Well, I just feel like you can't please everybody, but at least you just got to be clear with yourself on what your values are, right? Like, are there certain principles you kind of rule your life by? Are there certain beliefs? And you got to have that to like governs on decisions on how you do things, because you're never going to do everything right all the time. So I would the way that I would be able to accept the decisions I made, right or wrong, would be as if I was like, hey, well, it's because this is important to me, and this is why I do it, and this is who I'm doing it for. So I have beliefs in place. I know what they are. I understand the world around me, and I have a perspective on it, and I see, and I don't need somebody to tell me what it is. I actually have, a pretty clear viewpoint on it. Mm-hmm. And that's just how, and that's how I live my life. So if I'm running a company and then new legislation pops up that creates severe financial hardship on my employees, and it's become an issue that was put more because of the legislation, put more on the shoulders of the employees, and it wasn't a mandatory expense for the company, then it just becomes more of a judgment call. Because obviously it's like, hey, this isn't my choice, but if you've got a large company and you're employing thousands and thousands of people, and everybody's affected by it, then it becomes more like there's this union body. Like you've got, let's say you have 5,000 employees, and if every single person is affected by it, and maybe more than 95% of them can't afford this, it's going to become a big issue inside the company. I mean, there just won't be any way to avoid it because they're going to talk about it. Everybody will explain it. People are always looking for answers. They're looking for, a solution to try to solve something like that. So the way I would try to handle it would be with my company is I would try to think about what the growth of it and with the culture that I have, because when you have a company that big and you've got a lot of employees, you're not just investing in them with the salary, but there's also operational expense that the company has too, on top of the employee's salary. And there's a lot of initiatives that they might invest in on future training for these people. So they do want to get a return of investment with them, and try to grow the company that way. And I think you just want to set down what your strategic goals are and be able to meet them and put some responsibility with the people that work there.
So, I see where you're coming from. Where you're talking about, like, yeah, you made a really good point, but you have like 5,000 employees or 3,500 employees. My route would be like, well, if this legislation is causing my employees to go down, then not able to afford, then I'm gonna have to make those cuts on the employees to make sure that the markets that I can still provide for I can still provide for that market, and it will force the government legislation to either make a change because they're losing money off the profit that I'm making because I'm being forced to do something that if I don't want to go bankrupt, I don't want to default. And I feel like in that scenario, it puts you in a situation like you're talking about a judgment call where do you pull like the money out of the thin air and assist those and you offer this service to the employees, or you just feel like, look, hey, I'm just in the same situation as you. Don't look to me because you're putting me in the same situation and you're not realizing that I got to make money.
Delicate issue.
Yeah, and
there was a CEO and chairman of a company called Publicist Group and Saatchi and Saatchi last year. This is an unrelated topic. We weren't talking about this earlier, but I just remembered that you know the company Saatchi and Saatchi, and we talked about Kevin Roberts, right? He's the guy that I got in contact with last year. Well, what I didn't know was before I can get him on my podcast and on my webcast back then, and we were trying to get the scheduling done. In the meantime, I had closed the webcast down, and then just within less than about a month and a half, he ended up getting fired and laid off as the CEO and chairman of that company because of something he had said about the conversation, the topic of women in the workforce. You know, like women equality, you know, that issue's been alive and kicking for quite a long time now. And more women, they just keep complaining that there's not enough equality in the workplace because with the same job getting done, a woman's going to be paid, I don't know what the figure is, but they say like a woman will be paid a percentage of what the men get. Men always get paid higher, right? Well, he said something like, he was just like, can we, move on from this conversation? I thought we already handled this.
So like he got fired for saying that?
Guy, he's just like, dude, we've been playing this broken record for way too long. Can we move on to something else and be productive? Well, backlashed on him and they ended up firing him for it.
See, and like, that's the craziest thing, man. I'm not trying to say anything against women at all. I'm not going to even make my actual point because I feel like having a point about this is only going to hurt you, Yeah. It's not going to help you out. Like, people are not going to. Yeah, so it's just one of those things where you just have to. People can have their opinions on certain things, and I'll have my opinions on it, and I feel like that's fair. Because
that's a touchy subject though too, right? Imagine you had that happening inside your company and it was like this fire that kept growing and getting bigger and bigger and you couldn't put it out. And imagine you're an executive, your whole job is to put out fires all the time and to lead the company. So what do you do in those kind of situations? Like, how do you get the company's attention?
I'm gonna tell you what you do.
What matters?
I'm gonna tell you what you do. And this is something.
Attention on whatever
this is something
for the company.
This is what I want to lobby for.
Yeah.
I want to lobby for a non-title. So basically, you can only be called by your name. And the moment you try to say that I'm a female, I'm a male, I'm gay, I'm this right here, you can get fired. Because the moment you say that you want to be something, the moment you try to identify yourself not as a human being in my company, you are being divisive and you're trying to create a division. And I have the right to fire you. And that way, you can't make that argument because you signed a contract saying like, hey, well, we're going to be here. It's going to be 100% equality. Nobody is going to be able to say they're this or that. All they can say is this is your name, and you can use a proper pronoun. Yeah. No, you're not even that. You just say your name, or you can just say, you know what, you work in my employment in my company. You're just a number, because that's the only way that is going to really strip the power of this division. Because I believe it's only divisive. It's only to create an issue. It's only for somebody to say, oh, this is happening because of this. Because nobody is willing to take accountability nowadays. There is no such thing as accountability.
Well, it's true. It's like if you have two people competing at something, can't you call? Isn't there going to be one winner and one loser?
Yeah, that's just how reality works.
Like, there's nothing you can ever do to actually make it equal.
Yeah,
right.
That's how reality works. And like I was trying to tell you, human nature is still a thing. But I feel like people don't even pay attention to the fact that human nature is a real thing. That people are going to be different, and people are going to complain about things, and people are going to do this right here. And I'm like, bro. Yeah. So the best way to defeat this is to basically take it away. You know what I'm saying?
Try to remove it. Did I just compare a winner and a loser and men and women?
No, you didn't.
Okay, good. I want to make sure the audience out there doesn't try to think that that's what I was leading to. But I just thought about it, and I said, hey, could somebody think of it that I was just comparing men, women, winners, and losers? No, I think I was trying to break it up, right? But I think with what I totally like that tactic that you're saying on where they're going to sign a contract that says, I am Gary-Dobbs, right? That's who you are. You're nothing else. You're a human just like everybody else here.
Yeah.
And here's the job description. Why we hired you, because we felt like you're the best person to take care of this. We want your expertise. Take care of it. Get it done for us. Right?
Yeah. What do you think, man? Honestly, what do you
think?
I
like your idea. I think it's a good idea. I like the idea.
Wouldn't that just
throw
a wrench?
I like where you're going with it.
That would just really destroy any argument that any person could have. Because if they really wanted to try to say something, they would be first saying, "Oh, but I'm different." So they would be making an excuse. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And if you can take that away, if you can take away that thunder, that fire that they have inside them that they can use against you, whether it's male, female, gay, straight, black, white, Asian, Puerto Rican, whatever it is, once you take that away from them and you say, hey, you're just a number in my company, and if you work for my company, your number's going to be 2, 3, 4, 5. If you call yourself by your name or by your gender, then I can fire you. Because you are creating division, and we don't want division. We want unity in our business. And
that's so crucial when you're talking about employee culture, right?
Yeah.
You want that entrepreneurial spirit, the spirit to build and create and solve problems. You need that collective ability within inside the company.
And then I would go overboard with it, and I'll have cameras all over, like that movie Circle. I haven't seen it, but I'll have cameras all over. And the moment I hear somebody say he or she, you get fired. You know, just like it'll be that for real. And then people will be like, "Oh, blah blah blah." I wonder how how people would just try to like bash on that. I wonder how it would backfire. You know, what do you think? How would that backfire, man? Because right now I'm laughing at it because I feel like. Yeah. This is the only way that you can handle these kind of socio-political issues is by taking away anything. Everybody has to be a white stripe or a black stripe, and nothing different. There can't be any difference. You can't say this right here. You can't say that. It's crazy, man. Like they just done change it. Now the Boy Scouts are accepting girls to be Boy Scouts. I'm like, what? That's crazy, man. Isn't that crazy, man?
That's crazy. It is crazy.
I don't see, like, if I could see if there was no Girl Scouts at all, but there's a Girl Scout. So, like, I'm trying to figure out why is it so important for a girl to want to be a Boy Scout?
Yeah.
Like, is that, I don't understand how that's, like, like creating gender stereotypes. It's like, what the, you know? So, it's whatever, man. It's just, it's weird for me, and I'm just an entrepreneur, and I'm just trying to figure out, and I'm just seeing all this stuff, like, bombard me. I'm like, what? This is crazy. The world is like, people are actually caring about this kind of stuff.
I'd come across a lot of ways that, like, one thing I like about sales profession is, like, what you just described, you know, right? Like, about how some people are trying to divide things, and sometimes something just might look like divisive, right?
Yeah.
And some people might view it as being divisive, right? But in sales, there's one of the, you know, one of the three core things that are so important for a salesperson is you want to build relationship with people, and you want to, you know, form that with as many people as possible so that they know, like, and trust you, right? So you got to get them to know you, and then you got to get them to like you, and then they're going to be able to trust you, and that's where you're going to, the barrier to make the sale is going to drop way down. But the reason why I brought this up, because I was just paying attention. I was just watching a interview of Jordan Belfort on the Breakfast Club the other day.
Oh, you watched that too?
Huh?
I watched it as well.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know how recent this was, but I watched these things on YouTube, so I forget to look on when the actual published date was of the actual interview, you know, because most of the time I'm looking at, like, the YouTube published date, which is not the same date, right? Mm-hmm. And so I was watching it, and he was talking about this when it comes to sales. And Charlemagne the God was talking about, like, it being divisive when you know, have this racism and stuff like that, like, where he's like, a white person's acting like a certain way, then I don't even want to do business with them, right? And then Jordan Belfort was explaining, goes, no, it's not even like that. Look, he goes, it's like likability, right? He goes, see,
Hello? I just feel like he may have actually hung up the phone. Hey, this happens sometimes.
Hello?
Hey, man, what happened?
I don't know. I'm just standing here, and the phone got disconnected.
Yeah, just hung up on me.
It just hung up on me, too.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Damn. How are we going to be able to continue the show?
It's still continuing right now, man. We're live.
Oh, okay, good. Okay, good. All right. So we're back on. All right. So my point was, see, in sales, people know there's just certain people like certain things, and it's totally fine, right? Some people have a preference. That's fine. You can like certain things. You can like that. Doesn't mean that you're racist or anything. They just know it has to do with likability, right? They're just familiar with this. This is something that's familiar to them. They feel comfortable. That's what they know. That's what they like. That's what they trust, right? Mm-hmm. And so he was trying to explain that like Charlemagne the God couldn't get it, and then Jordan was trying to explain. He's just like, but it's just some people like to do business with their own culture.
Yep.
He's like, it's not really a skin thing. It's kind of like a custom thing. Like, you're used to being around these type of people. You've grown up with these certain traditions. Yep. So you're just used to life being a certain way. So you prefer to do business with those kind of people. And that's the way he was trying to explain it, but Charlemagne the God couldn't understand that. He was looking at it as a topical issue, like black, white, Asian,
because
and
I
whatever.
feel like Charlemagne the God likes racism. He
exactly.
loves that kind of stuff. He wants to be divisive. He wants you to be a black thing instead of being a human nature thing. Like, it sucks. Things bad happen to people. That's just a reality. And what can we do next? How can we build off of this? How can we upgrade our whatever? Yeah,
and that's what I've learned in sales. It taught me a lot about like just accepting and working with a lot of people, like just being able to accept differences with people. You know, you're not going to get everybody to like you. Some of the really, really great salespeople are powerful persuaders, right? But persuasion's not about getting somebody to do something they would never do or not want to do. It's just about helping them, tip them to make a decision, right? So it's usually more about helping the people that are doubtful. That's where like salespeople that have really good persuasion skills, like Jordan Belfort, like when he said he got himself into trouble because he was really using it to his advantage and getting people to do things that they didn't want to do. Like it was not in their best interest. So you could say that like he was questionably selling with no ethics involved. So ethics are really important. But you can sell a lot and be ethical.
Yeah.
And I think he made that point pretty clear in the show. But you could see that the guy just understands people really well. And you could see that he was naturally able to do things really well. And see, mind you, he was making a lot of money at like 25. So, there's majority of the people on this planet don't understand the truth about a lot of the things he was saying. And he was experiencing and had this working in his favor when he was 25, right? He still hadn't experienced life yet. He still hadn't gone through anything enough in life to say that you could say this guy is an experienced person. Maybe you could say he was lucky, or maybe you could say he was talented in certain ways, but then look what happened to him. He went to jail. He lost everything. He's still seen as a fraud or a scam artist. But it's just some people have those abilities and they go through at a young age. So of course it's going to seem like it's something terrible, but they had never experienced something different. Mm-hmm. So with sales, I feel like sales is that one type of job that I think is really good for anybody to try. It's just if you can get the basics of it and the understanding about what sales is about and how you continue to make sales and how some of these superstar salespeople can just sell anything in no matter what kind of market it is. It's because they have these basic principles, these understandings about it, which I think is really powerful. It's something I think maybe the world would be a better place if everybody was a salesperson at one time. You never know.
Yeah. I just feel like you're so right about that, man. The thing about it is knowing your ability to get somewhere. That's where I think where the real problem comes, because we're talking about entrepreneur in not your country, not this right here, just what is the culture of the environment that you work at, that you are creating? We talked about this, building, the entrepreneurial culture, doing this kind of things. But outside of that, there are going to be people that you're trying to attract. And like what you were saying about the Breakfast Club interview, it's true, man. Like, I've done some research on this in sociology and just some of the classes I had to take when I was in college. And it's interesting how, based off of different demographics of how much, they spend money in their own cultural area. And it's, it's kind of sad, because like black people, they don't really bounce their money back into their own culture. Most of the time they go to like the mall and they bounce it in other different ones, like Chinese market, the Arab market, the white market, whatever it is. But, like the Jewish people and Arabs and Chinese, it bounces like 7 or 8 times on average, at minimum, in their own little area. And you wonder why certain things, like why, some people are considered consumers So they only work to buy stuff. They don't really work to build. And it's one of those things where like it's a harsh reality. And how do you tackle that culture with the purchasing habits and things like that? And so I feel like sometimes understanding this information allows you to market to certain demographics in certain ways, because I know I'm not going to tell anybody my Imager name, but I do go on Imager to test the kind of responses I can get for certain kind of ideas. And it's interesting how I'm learning that in that open space where there's people only going there to either pat themselves on the back and look at memes that they agree with, be grossed out, laugh, or hate on people for no reason. And I've been really learning how to tap into those different areas and at a very high rate. At a very high rate, where it's crazy.
Okay.
So when you're building, when you're talking about, does your business represent your country? I think one must first understand what is the country in the first place. So you and we both are American. I may have grew up not in America. I spent more of my life overseas, but I'm still an American. What do you think the American business landscape is? If you're an entrepreneur, what do you think a person should value?
I think what they should value is the entrepreneurial spirit. It's that if you get an idea that you want to live a certain lifestyle or you want to do something, it could be even anything that you've never done before, but that you can actually go do it. Like there might be people that give you a hard time about it or aren't going to help you or are going to try to bring you down, but those are just obstacles. The only person holding you back is you. So that's one of the things. I mean, there are probably other countries that act in this way with a lot of things, but I don't know what other countries have this strong entrepreneurial spirit like we do, because that so much rests on the shoulders of the individual. So maybe that's why I love this country so much, is that I'm an independent, and I feel like any person should be able to do anything they want at any time. Like understanding with the intention that this person naturally wants to help people and doesn't want to hurt people, right? So we know that there are people out there that they would much rather go out and hurt somebody than help them, right? So they're more selfish in that respect. But I think most people, when you come here and you're trying to work, it's the landscape with business is about trying to truly solve problems, right? So no matter what your job is, what you're doing, you could even be a janitor, like with that example we were talking about earlier. You could be a janitor at, let's say, Wynn Resorts. Well, let's say that there was 3 major events that just got done within the last hour, and everybody was coming to your hotel, your casino, and coming in, and that meant, trash all over the place. People were throwing things here and there. There was so much foot traffic. So if you don't have, like, the janitor going in there figuring out how to solve this problem, like, how are they going to handle all this traffic at the same time to be able to keep this place looking pristine all the time is a problem. So there is some sort of an entrepreneurial spirit that janitor has. Those janitors got to figure out, okay, we need a strategy. We need to team up here. We need to think like a sport team. We need to figure out how we're going to tackle this, because there's a lot of issues. If somebody's dropping drinks and we're not paying attention to it, they could slip, they could fall, hit their head on the hard floor, and we got a lawsuit, right? So there's pretty much an entrepreneurial ability in every job position at any company, given certain situations. It might not be there all the time, but there are going to be times that it calls for it, right? And if I was running that company, so if I owned all the Wynn Resorts and casinos, I'm going to want to empower that employees to be able to have the ability and have the resources to be able to take care of situations like that, and they're not just sitting around waiting for management to come and solve a problem, right? I want to empower every person that's there. And so for me, to me, that's what the landscape is. It's about trying to give that power, give people the ability to use their entrepreneurial nature and come up with, be able to solve problems. And for a lot of people, being an entrepreneur just might mean being an employee at some companies. Sometimes they're practicing it, or maybe a lot of times they aren't. But entrepreneurship is about seeing problems happen, and then you just realize there's something that needs to be done like this. The way it keeps going, the cycle we keep going through, is just not working. We need to solve this problem. We need to fix this. We need to find a better way. There isn't anything out there that we see that exists. So what innovation are we going to be able to bring right now to solve our problems? And I feel like that's what is at the heart of it, is to remain and to be innovative. Because if you're not innovative, your company is going to die. And so your company doesn't exist without the people. So the people inside the company need to be taught to be innovative and be creative and come up with solutions, or not just sit around and wait for somebody else to make a decision. Right? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's how I look at it.
I feel like it's interesting, man, because it's crazy where we got to when we're thinking about, okay, what are we trying to really do here? What is going on in our country? America is the land of opportunities, and people are going around saying that people are not getting opportunities. But I see people who are successful from all colors, all genders, all whatever it is. So to make that claim, then I can show you 100 people contradicts your ultimate argument, in my opinion. If you're going to make that claim, you got to also be able to say, well, what about this person right here? What about this person right here? What about that person? They're this, they're that. You know what I'm saying? I'm not even going to define what this and that is, because I don't want to, because I'm so like beyond placating to this idea of the instances of individual, whatever you want to claim to be. So I'm going to say that or this. And you can choose to describe what that is on whoever it is, the viewer or the listener. Because a lot is going on. And to me, does it make me insensitive to be like, oh, it's kind of annoying to me to have to deal with this, when all I'm really trying to do is build for my future and, you know, perhaps a future family and all these other kind of things. I feel like I shouldn't be forced to adhere to your opinion, you know, that self-righteous superiority of like, well, this is the environment socially, and if you're on that side of the table, you are the enemy. But I just feel like I shouldn't be forced to agree with you. Yeah,
like they're renaming it the Divided States of America. Right? Yeah. It's not the Divided States of America.
Yeah, it's the United States of America. And I feel like when we start getting back to that point and saying like, yeah, there are some crappy situations in life. There are. It's just reality. But does that mean that you can just go around and do whatever? You know what I mean? Doesn't mean that. What it really means is that we gotta come together. That's the point that I'm trying to make. If you want to call yourself an individual, then you're not. Then you're saying that you want to be divided. If you want to say that I'm an African American, even though I never knew, like, me personally, I'm not African American because I was just born in America. I didn't go to Africa or anything like that. I'm just an American. And these people putting these little things on top of their name, saying this right here and that, I mean, and then forcing it to get into every situation. Like, think about it, man. We're a business podcast. We talk about business. But because we coming to this point in the landscape of opportunities that people will try to make an argument, if we hire people, that can be an issue. That can be an issue. There can be a social landscape that is unnecessary for a person to have to deal with when it comes down to it. It's unnecessary for us to really go out of our way to be like, okay, we know there's different people and everybody have their different points of views. How can we take one point of view and ostracize them and say, oh, you are so behind the times. If you don't agree with us, so basically reverse doing what they were doing to them. Instead of just coming to the point and being like, hey, what? You think that way? I think this way. As long as we're working, let's work on the task at hand, and then not really care about how we feel about each other, because we're here for the money. You know what I'm saying? That's how it is for me, because I know sometimes I work with people I didn't like personally, but I knew that I had a mission, I had a job I had to do, so I just did the job. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like we don't live in that world anymore. We live in this world where if anything makes you uncomfortable or something that you don't like, hard and whatever it is, it's not a reality anymore. Everything's supposed to be easy and given to you. So I just think that it's funny that that's a real thing nowadays. But I mean, what do you have to say, man? Like, do you see where I'm trying to go? When I'm trying to say, like, let's just be unified. That's what entrepreneurs do, come together.
Because I feel like, I try to look at it more like a game of sports. So, you know, a game of sports, there's a trophy, there's a champion, and there's an end to all of this, right? And then the year ends, and then there's time off, and then you start all over again, and you try to win the trophy next year, right? Mm-hmm. So every year, these sport teams are all trying to compete for that trophy. That's the goal. And so, but be able to do it, they've got to be on a team, which is like a company that you're going to work with, and a group of people that you're going to work with towards trying to make that happen. And I think most coaches that I have ever heard, they've always talked about unity inside the team is crucial for the team to be successful. As soon as there's ever like teammates on the team being divisive or arguing about stuff, ends up just hurting the entire team, and it pulls them back from their true potential. It's a lot the same way inside the company, right? Like, remember we were talking about startup culture, and we talked about that story with Sam Zell before, and he was explaining that in his companies, he's learned that the spirit of entrepreneurship has got to be a united front. So every person inside of his company needs to be together on their mission and objective. So they're going after that trophy together. And that's what, to me, it is. That's where, like, I saw you going with it is that people inside the company, inside the business landscape, you want to be united with the people you're working with at your company. Now, your opposition could be people at another company, so you're trying to compete and go for the market share, right? Like, your trophy is to get the top awards inside your company, get the top awards inside your industry from associations and groups outside the company, be recognized for, for being a leader and being a think, what do you call, they call them like forward thinkers or thought leaders on subjects that they deal with. So people that focus on that, then they end up just improving the industry, they improve themselves, they improve the people around them, and it's a much better experience for everybody when you work at it like that. Because for me, when we have a company, I think it's all about growth, right? And if I was the entrepreneur that I am working towards, I would own multiple companies. And sometimes I'd realize certain industries are dying, certain business types are not going to do well. There's no need for it anymore, and you have to spot those and to realize well, we're not going to invest much more into this company. It's just dying off. Like, we might be squeezing out a small profit margin in this area, but we could see in the next 5 or 10 years, this company might not exist anymore. So you're already just investing into other businesses to grow and start them. And it's about growth, but I just would look at it like company growth, right? How are we going to grow this company? And if the company can't grow, then do we need to reinvent the company, or do we need to start another company and just either close this one or let this company die off as that industry goes away?
Yeah. We're in this situation right now where we gotta freaking force ourselves to do certain things that is uncomfortable, because there's people who are louder than common sense. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They're louder than common sense. And
you said louder than common sense?
Yeah. They're louder than common sense. And
you're saying, like, so in a bad way, like where they could steer people in the wrong direction?
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you said that, I was thinking about internet marketing, because social media has brought up a lot of new opportunities, new jobs for people, which is good, but it's also created a lot of that, what you called that loud, what'd you call it?
What?
Misguided loudness over logic?
Oh, you talking about, yeah. They're louder than common sense?
Louder than common sense. So
yeah.
The people, people need to be aware of that and focus and be able to just, you have to actually get some facts, get some proof, get some things in writing about what's going on. So you can't really lead your business and grow it in the market share unless you have some statistics about the market. Like, what type of business do you have? Okay, so what's the size of the market? Are you talking about just the regional market, like locally, or are you talking about national market?
Yeah.
Right? Or are you talking about international market? So it's like you need to have those numbers, and you could see how much are people spending for that every year. And so your company's working in it, and it knows what those numbers are. You know how much revenue you have right this year. Let's say you know how much revenue you had for last year, and you know what the market value for that industry type was last year. So by going off those numbers and having some facts to work with, then you could start being able to really see where I'm going to grow this company, and invest in it, or if it's even a good idea. Because like what you said, I see when I'm thinking of a lot of the entrepreneurs that are starting out or trying to become business owners, they're just seeing people advertise success, and then they think that there's so much opportunity, and then they just go, and then people say, oh, well, don't be negative, have a positive mindset. You're the only one holding yourself back. Well, there is some logic to it, right? And I think that's the point that it seemed to me like that's the point that you were driving to. I mean, that's what I drove from it.
Mm-hmm.
Because you got to have some logic in there, and you've got to be able to say, actually have some proof, have some facts about what you're working on to see if really, do the opportunities really lie there, or if it's just somebody fluffing.
Yeah.
Is it just noise that you're listening to?
I just feel like, man, it is so interesting that we get caught up in these crazy situations where there's people out there who focus more on the nuances, the little things that don't even really matter when it comes down to like the business and how you get things done and how you focus on things. And really, it's a sad shame, because what we should focus on, if you're going to be working on the business, if you're going to be doing what you have to do to get to where you got to go, you're going to be working on the outcome. Like, what is it, the reason why you're doing something? And what are you focusing on really to get there? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
On the outcome inside the business?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they've got to have some strategic goals. I think every employee inside the company's got to agree on what direction the company's going towards.
But
right? Now, each people might have a different way on getting there, so you can give your employees freedom on how they get there, but there's got to be some goals. Some, I mean, it's as simple as, are we playing this to win? So we want to be the market leader. Who is the market leader now? And then what is it going to take for us to become the market leader?
Well,
is it something possible we could reach this year, or is it something more possible in, let's say, year 3, if we lay out our steps and be strategic about it?
But the thing is, the landscape. We're talking about your business in your country. Like, you have these 3-year down the road things like that. But what is happening right now that you have to consider and worry about? Like, think about the guy from Saatchi and Saatchi, Kevin Roberts. Think about him.
Yeah.
He just made a statement, thinking like, look, okay, we already know this. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not going to change overnight. I don't know if he said it in that kind of way, but basically to the effect made that point, and he got fired from his job because people were more afraid of. Maybe people actually agreed with that, but it's like, oh, you can't say that publicly because it's going to make us look like we don't care. But I feel like these same people talking about all these human rights, they're not doing anything for the human trafficking industry. You're not doing anything hard enough to make that. They're not really making an impact because it's still happening. You know what I'm saying? So, like, do these people really care, or are they doing it for the pat on the back to say, like, look, I'm socially aware. I'm conscious of the fact. And me and you, we're over here trying to set up our business, and that's going to affect us. That is going to be a thing you have to consider as an entrepreneur when you go out in the workforce and you've been doing things your own way and you made strides and you worked hard, and then somebody comes and tells you, oh, it's inequality out there and you made it because of this right here. You didn't work hard to get there. Or you're saying that, oh, these things were given to you because you had certain advantages in life. Like, people were out there taking away and crapping on your hard work and your effort and saying that it was given to you. Insulting what you've done. So, how do you make it, your business, reflect the culture, the country that you're in, and also pacify basically this kind of stuff that's going on out there, and be current and be aware and be socially conscious and all this other kind of stuff at the same time? It seems like an impossible task.
That's a good question.
Yeah. What do you think about that when people come to you and say, well, you're only successful because you're a man, or you're this, or you're that, Like, how do you take that? Look at them and you're like, you don't know.
I would take that to them as like, it sounds like you have an issue.
Yeah.
With that. You feel inferior to men.
Yeah. And
it would let me know about that person, about how they feel, the way they see the way things are. Because it has nothing to do with me.
No.
Because I could be doing something, and you can find 5 people that could read it 100 different ways.
Yeah.
You just don't know exactly what I'm thinking and feeling. So, for someone to come to it, they might bring something up, and I might say, "Hey, yeah, you know what? It's exactly what was on my mind about it. I agree with that position." But if somebody just came to me with that, I would think, I think you've got an issue with that.
Yeah.
Or are you just looking? You're just looking for people that agree with you,
Yeah. You said it right.
Say,
that is what I think.
I disagree with it.
That is the thing. Because I had that argument. Like, somebody made a post on Facebook, and I just, instead of explaining why I disagree, I just said, you have your right to your own opinion. Because I had made a point, and then they said, like, they use an expletive, they use an F-bomb to, like, say, oh, that's a stupid thing, and F this, and all that other stuff. And instead of me, like, getting caught up and trying to because they were trying to pat themselves on the back by saying, oh, I'm socially superior than you because I accept this for this and you don't, and you are basically called me an effing douchebag for saying hey, they didn't call me that in a way, but I felt like that's what they were trying to say, like on their own little side, and I was like, okay, you have the right to think whatever you want. I'm not going to judge you. And then the person was like, America after that, because then they realized that this person, like, I didn't respond. I didn't meet them at their same low level of how they responded to what I was saying, like a neutral statement. Like, water is wet. Well, water's not wet to a fish. You know, that little, you seen that YouTube video, the person explaining that fish aren't wet or something like that. It's some weird kind of crazy, like, whatever they're trying to say. But it was weird.
Oh, okay.
You should watch that YouTube video.
Okay.
I recommend people to watch that one. But yeah. So it's just that situation that people are in. And I learned that over time it's better for me to focus on what I'm doing. Yeah, I didn't know about the whole like controversy with the flag. I didn't know about the Vegas shooting. I didn't know about this. I didn't know about that. I'm not living in a bubble. I'm focused on my goals. And I think that in general, people should be focused on their goals. And there's a lot of things out there. Too. There's a lot of things out there that will take your focus off and lead you astray, and you won't reach your goals. You won't be anywhere. You'll be like Shaggy and Scooby-Doo, scared and moving their legs really fast, but not going forward or backwards, staying in the same place. And I don't want to stay in the same place. I want to focus. I want to grow. I want the Trep Show to grow. I want your business to grow, Gary Digital. I want my business to grow, Hugo. And I want us to build. I want us to be able to tackle on this culture of division and unify. And I think that there's got to be ambassadors to say, look, guys, now we're going crazy. You know, we're still in America. We have our differences. Let's work together. You know, let's build the bridge, not the wall. You know what I'm saying? And the bridge to communication, to understanding, like, hey, there's some logic in the argument. Like, I feel like a lot of times people are just arguing against things for the sake of it. And it's not good. Do you think
that's true? I mean, it's like what they say, focus grows. Focus grows where energy goes. So if they continue to focus on those divisive conflicts, that's just what they're going to get more of. It's just going to grow. Yeah. Grow like a fire, grow out of control. So it's like you could address issues, but then you've got to have you got to have a solution to move on from it. And I think that's why I love entrepreneurship so much, because it's so focused on the solutions that you're going to try to bring, and that's it. You pick a problem, not to explore it and make it worse. You just pick a problem to actually get rid of it. I think that's what I love about entrepreneurship the most.
Yeah, same here, man. And I feel like the major focus that we should have is understanding the landscape. Number one.
Yeah.
Figuring out how that landscape is going to affect your business as an entrepreneur, and then execute your ideas. I feel like if you can do those things, you know, understand the landscape, understand the effects of that, and execute whatever it is that you're trying to do, that's going to unify people around you. It's not going to divide people. It's not a divisive kind of thing. And I'm not divisive in nature. I feel like everything that I was saying, I try to be neutral. I'm not going to try to say I'm for this, I'm for that. And I feel like if you try to put me in a position where I got to be for something, then you're creating a division. Because I think that everybody should be there. I think everybody should be an individual. But at the same time, understand there's other people around them. If we can focus on that, we can build and we can grow. You know, I'm Thaddeus Archibald, co-host.
And I'm Gary-Dobbs.
Gary-Dobbs. And we just had a little conversation today, and I hope that you gained from it. Peace.